amidst controversial money collection accusation.
We also call on the Ghana Education Service to immediately reinstate the headmistress of West Africa Senior High School and any other headmistress or headmaster in similar situation.
First Deputy Speaker worried over current hung parliament, which he says has led to worse performance in parliamentary history.
We have decided to do politics rather than business. I'm saying it. This equal number of parliament has brought the worst in MPs. I've repeated it. I will repeat it again.
And later on CNR Extra, NPP flag bearer hopefuls petition for centralized special delegates Congress. Once again, you're welcome to CNR Extra here on City TV. You can join us with your thoughts, submissions, and comment via WhatsApp line 0204447033. We're also streaming live on YouTube. You can join us there on CityTube. Jude Mensadan, you're welcome to the show. How are you doing, my brother?
I'm welcome.
It's a Friday.
Thank you, Philip. I mean, it's always a pleasure to be here. I'm only dazed by some numbers.
We will talk about it, you know.
Casually,
at home. But we can't tell whether it's lying down at home or not. But we'll come to that story. If it's only on our script, we'll definitely talk about it. But let's bring you the first story. And 9 out of 10 flag bearer hopefuls of the New Patriotic Party, they have petitioned the party's leadership to centralize the August 26 Special Delegates Congress. City News' Firma Edunyami spoke to Sami Wiafe from the Alisa Hotel in Accra, where a meeting was held to that effect last night.
Here's an update of what is currently going on at the meeting.
Firma, thank you very much. As we speak, the meeting is still ongoing. The meeting started at 2 p.m. this afternoon, and as we speak, it's still ongoing. It's supposed to be in two folds. The National Executive Committee of the party will first meet, and when they are done, the National Council will meet. The first part of the meeting, which is the National Executive Committee, is done with their meeting. What is currently underway is the National Council bit of the meeting. So the decisions that were taken by the National Executive Committee will be laid before the table of the National Council, and the National Council has the power either to accept or reject these recommendations by the National Executive Committee. The NPP Constitution, the National Council is the second highest decision-making body of the party. And so even if decisions are taken by the National Executive Committee, the National Council has the power to either adopt those decisions or reject them entirely. Now, today's meeting, we're discussing two main issues. There's a petition before the National Executive Committee for a proposed centralization of the August 26th election. Now, these aspirants believe that if the election is held at one place, it will augur well for the party. All these aspirants who petition the party, the 9 of them are present at this meeting, with the exception of Mr. Alan Tremanti, who we are told is not at this meeting, but he's heavily represented by former General Secretary of the party, Nano Hinito, who is an integral member of his campaign. The Vice President of the Republic is also in this particular meeting. He did not sign this particular petition that is being discussed at this meeting. So it was a 9 aspirants, excluding the Vice President, who did not sign. So all these people who matter are in this particular meeting. If you see the hall behind me, the doors behind me, though, that's the place the meeting is ongoing. So the National Council will take the decision as to whether there should be a centralized election which will be held on the 27th of August, or go with what the party constitution says, which says that it should be a decentralized system where the election will be held on regional basis. So every region will have one polling center where all the constituency executives who are in those particular regions, all people in those particular constituencies will meet at that particular region designated for election, and the election will take place. Another issue also being discussed is the election. Remember yesterday, the General Secretary of the party, Justin Kodia, told us that they need to compile a new register for the special delegate conference, because the current state of that particular register is not fit for purpose, and that cannot be used for election, because some of the members on the list of that particular delegate list are dead. Some of them have abandoned posts, and so there's a need for them to compile a new register for this election. So definitely by close of this.
So after several hours in that meeting, the National Council of the NPP dismissed the petition by the 9 aspirants proposing that the party's August 26 election be centralized, while the 9 flag-bearer hopefuls, excluding the vice president, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, they are arguing that a centralized election will be more efficient and transparent. They insist that plans to allow only 900 delegates to vote at the regional level do not sit well with them. But at the end of the day, the National Council rejected their position and says that we are going to go on with the precedent that has been set in 2014, and that we would make it decentralized.
I mean, Philip, you can understand the concerns of these 9 candidates who, bar the vice president, are pushing forward for this, because if you look at the special electoral college who will be voting in this super delegate conference of the NPP, they are basically numbering about 900 to 1,000 people, right? And the general secretary of the NPP was quite clear in the number of voters they are expecting for that particular election. And to suggest that these 900 people, I mean, let's assume that 1,000 delegates are supposed to vote at different places. I mean, it could even have some logistical challenges, right? So their argument is that it is easy, it is simpler, getting all of them to converge at one particular place to vote. But mind you, some of these people will be traveling from all parts of the countries, right? For which reason, the party's leadership and the framers of its constitution felt that we should get them to vote at whatever respective location the party would put out.
But I also understand that the 2014 elections that was done, and that was decentralized. The argument is that then the NPP was in opposition. They didn't have much funds to conduct that exercise. But now they have much funds to ensure that it's going to be centralized.
I mean, constitutional provisions for the NPP differ as and when, or whether or not they are in government or they are in opposition. So they are likely to do things a little bit differently when they are in opposition in terms of the date sets for the election of flag bearers and MPs and all of that. But it's quite interesting that we talk about 9 other candidates with the exception of the vice president. I listened to spokesperson for the vice president's campaign, Miracles, Dennis Abuaji, who said on radio yesterday with Umaru Sanda that the vice president is indifferent. Now, if you listen to certain conversations that has taken place, interviews involving some presidential candidates, I mean, Boache Jako on this platform, CTTV, the Point of View show, said quite eloquently that the 8 of them talk among themselves, right? So it will be interesting how this plays out in the coming days. Other aspirants have also said on different platforms about how 8 of them appear to be usually in the same line of thinking when issues around the elections come up, and it appears by far and large that there's a certain establishment candidate in this, and happens to be the vice president, who is also a national council member. So you understand why, because he can't be a referee and a player in this at the same time. So you would understand why the vice president would want to recuse himself and create and say that he doesn't really mind whichever way this turns out. But for those involved, as in the other 8 who are objecting to the laid out plans of the party, you can understand why they want that. I think other reasons, aside the fact that they want to bring everybody together for logistical reasons, will also be because they feel that instances of rigging and arm twisting and some form of influence in the results will be kept if it's all brought to one particular place. I mean, there will be a lot more supervision, there will be a lot more focus on how the processes will pan out for that particular election. So it's going to be interesting.
Very interesting
in the coming days.
As now it's going to be decentralized now that the National Council of the NPP has stated so. Away from that story, let's go to Parliament, because Sorted parliamentary business. Let's bring you that insert.
The first Deputy Speaker of the House, Joseph Osei-Owusu, says the hung parliament has resulted in the worst performance of the House. Now, the chamber on Thursday was again forced to adjourn sittings due to the concern of lack of quorum by the MPs for Tamale North, Alhassan Suhuyini, to consider the Ghana Commission for UNESCO Bill 2022. Speaking to journalists, the Speaker, or the first Deputy Speaker, Joseph Osei-Owusu, expressed in the strongest term his displeasure with the continuous adjournment of sittings over the lack of quorum.
The first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joseph Osei-Owusu, was on Thursday compelled to adjourn sittings due to the lack of the required numbers of 92 legislators in the chamber to conduct major business activities, such as the Ghana Commission for UNESCO Bill 2022. During the consideration of the bill, the Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Alhassan Suhuyini, raised concerns
present and voting with at least half of the members of parliament present. Mr. Speaker, we are taking a decision right. Let's not reopen this matter. We have argued it over again. Can you resume your seat, please? Can you resume your seat? Both of you. Kindly resume your seat, everyone. Honorable, you leadership. This is a display of bad faith on your part. It's a display of bad faith on your part. Because we didn't hide anything from you. We didn't hide anything from you. So at the conclave, we came to a conclusion. The items or businesses that we needed to transact. And amongst them were critical bills. The wildlife bill, and then later on, we concluded on the UNESCO bill. And I communicated to my colleague, there is no surprise element here. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Look, if you have some other motive, let's know. Because the path you are blazing, you are taking everybody for a ride. Why? So we can't do business.
I think my colleague went too far when he suggested that we went to conclave to take a decision, and we are reneging on that, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, at conclave with you, we decided what are we going to do today. And we decided, but Mr. Speaker, at conclave, I couldn't tell whether we will get 92 people in the chamber before agreeing with you, Mr. Speaker. I had no control over how many people will be in the chamber when you come into the chamber. So my colleague should not make it as if the two of us actually made a decision that we will make sure 92 people are available for us to make a decision. I can understand the public is watching. You are right, Mr. Speaker, when you said that when you counted the number of people on both sides, we don't have the number. Mr. Speaker, let it be not said anywhere that we decided to do business and somebody came to the chamber and decided not to do business. We just did not have the numbers to take a decision, and let it be like that.
Other members, the total number of the votes clearly shows that we don't have the numbers to take a decision. 46 plus 27 takes us to 73. The number of MPs present at this time is 73. We can't take a decision.
The first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joseph Osei-Owusu, after the adjournment of the House, addressed the media, expressing his displeasure with the minority's continuous call for adjournment due to the lack of quorum for business activities to take place, saying that the hung Parliament has contributed to the worst performance of the House.
Business that requires a decision may suffer. But you see, we have decided to do politics rather than business. I'm saying it, that this equal number of parliament had brought the worst in MPs. I've repeated it, I will repeat it again. This parliament, the 8th parliament, has made the least number of laws. We have not cooperated as we did in the past. We have cooperated over the years because we understand the challenges. First, that business called consideration is very boring and it is very technical. So it's only a few people who got used to and learned over the years who were often in the chamber. When I joined, they used to call it delete and insert. When it gets to delete and insert, many people leave the chamber. But we never used the absence of our colleagues from the chamber to defeat the purpose and the substance and the work. Today, young people are in control. They look at things differently from the rest of us. So it is good for them, even when their leaders agree to do it. Check out, it's always people from the backbench who come to raise these issues, not the leaders. What it means is that indeed, at this time, in the Parliament of Ghana, leaders don't have control. The backbench have control.
Reacting to the comments made by the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joseph Osei-Owusu, the Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Ibrahim Mutala Mohammed, says the minority was only adhering to the provisions of the Constitution and the standing orders of Parliament.
The Supreme Court ruling is very clear that you must have at least half or more than half of members of Parliament present. What we simply did is to demand that things be done in accordance with the Constitution and the standing order. So if you describe that as trying to create problems in the House, I really don't think that we are being fair to the MDs.
Reporting from Parliament, my name is Ni Ayikwe Okain.
So quorum. We need 92 members in the House to form a quorum. Yesterday in Parliament, what the first Deputy Speaker just made mention of when he was giving the figures of the numbers that were in the House yesterday. He says that a total of 73 members were in the House. My little math shows me that we need 275 in the House, right? For a full House. Good. And 73 were in the House. So where are the 202?
I mean, the minority, as we know, are on protest.
But yesterday there wasn't any quotation.
I mean, Philip, going back to the comments of Honorable Joseph Osei-Owusu, you see, democracy of some 30 million people can be noisy and confusing at times, right? But it's the path we've chosen because we've seen that it's the path that can lead to some sort of proper governance and freedom that we've always wanted as a people. And to be fair, after 30 years of practice of democracy, I don't think it's fair to say that the hung parliament is it's opinion, and from the face of what we've seen transpire in parliament,
well, for his side, it's worse because they've not been able to do enough.
I think
till this time.
I think it's also because the Ghanaian voter decided that it was time for this. And I mean, we've always said that if you look at our parliament, for instance, it's about time we sort of work together, right, and put away extreme partisan differences. And it's always been interesting how this has come up. This is the first time I'm witnessing a hung parliament of a sort. So I don't expect that would have been a smooth process without any challenges here and there. I think we are still learning the ropes of it, and it's just by chance and the decision of the Ghanaian voter that at this particular point in time we want these people to represent us, and it turns out that it appears to be a hung parliament. So I disagree when we say that it's worst for us and it's not good for us, because again of the fact that this is the first time we are witnessing something like that in our democratic span. Right, in the period where we've been practicing democracy, this is the first time we're witnessing something like that, and it will take time for us to get used to something of the sort. But I mean, to an extent, it's taken away from our parliament, right? In that now it is more difficult to get things done in the House, and when the minority, for whatever reason, pulls out, then it makes it even more complicated. Joseph also makes a point to say that now leadership doesn't really lie with
because for the minority side, the leadership made mention of the fact that we don't have control over the numbers that come to Parliament from our side, if I got that right.
Yeah,
and there was an agreement that they are going to go pass some bills or have some businesses on the floor of Parliament, but that didn't materialize.
Yes, so I agree in to an extent when he says that it has taken away from the leadership, right? Because now they are not able to call the shot like we saw with previous parliaments. But I think it is still early days. like I said, we are learning the ropes of how to go about a situation like this when it appears or when it comes to the fore. So I disagree to an extent also when he says that it is bad for us because we've not been able to efficiently get some proper thing out of it. But it's early days yet. I mean, in the coming years, we would see how we are able to manage this much better.
Well, away from Parliament and the National Food Suppliers Association, they have expressed their disappointment over the insufficient payment from the buffer stock company.
Members of the National Food Suppliers Association were left disappointed and concerned when they received their payments from the buffer stock company to settle their arrears. The anticipation of finally receiving payment for their 2 years' worth of food supplies had brought smiles to their faces earlier. However, their joy quickly turned to frustration as they realized that the amount they received was far from sufficient to clear their debts with creditors. City News' Kweku Ejamansa has the rest of the story.
It was all smiles on the faces of food suppliers who had thronged the buffer stock company Thursday morning to receive checks to pay for the 2 years' arrears of food supplies made. Before receiving their checks, they were required to submit documents as proof of work and supplies. According to City News sources, the buffer stock company received a substantial amount of 100 million Ghana cedis to disburse to the food suppliers, raising hopes that their debts would be fully settled. However, as the suppliers received their checks, it became evident that they were only being paid half of the debt for 2022, leaving them in a dire financial situation. Many of them expressed their concerns that the meager amount provided would not be enough to address their present debts to creditors.
Last year, 2022, half in Drew half. Let me check it.
It's a dear boy, one more put you
I could you work and super beer. And 17 faggots, I mean, you need some of the last year, the other night. This year, not this year, last year, the Omo farmer, this year, the Omo farmer, maybe last year, maybe your mess on the half.
No, it's not just that. I just change for 1 year.
Yeah, yes. Education minister, they said, only
The disappointment was palpable among those who had traveled from various regions to collect their payments. This supplier had traveled from Buno region and due to the development had to contemplate her next move.
2022 dear, now you trade me like a creme. Yes, I'm going to 2023. I'm going to be a man. Can go to do it or some money. Can so say it's me. Yes, ma, opening your can. I'm fascist. It's me. Mending. Men are my cousin coffee book. I make a was. Says we bring me one dummy. Tini was a baby, and you must be disappointed. Come up, me.
It's the demanding to be here.
Already traded that actually as a second mamma say. 2022, mamma, near Massa. Tell them, no, mammy, 2022, now you trade a caca. What's a chimo? A coin. That's a penny, why, yes, and Kiki.
Amid the growing frustration and complaints from the suppliers, the CEO of the buffer stock company stepped forward to assure them that all outstanding debts would be settled by August 17.
The paperwork validation, we put it that way, validation, and we have so many processes that their invoices or store receipt vouchers go through before payments are done, because the Ministry of Education actually instituted a field audit team to actually go to the field to audit requests of payment that has come from buffer stock. So, some of this thing takes time. And then moreover, as at even last week, 2022 invoices are still coming in. As at last week, 2022 invoices, suppliers that were done in 2022 are still coming in. We just issued a cutoff point so that we'll be able to, complete the issue of 2022. Other than that, where we are trying to help suppliers, whereby whatever that you supply, at any time you can bring your invoices.
He vehemently denied any allegations that the company had misused the funds meant for paying the suppliers by diverting them to pay off loans.
Between 2021, 2022, 2023, the entire free senior high school feeding budget is far more than even 418 million. So clearly it is not the right figure, and we haven't taken every single money taken from Ministry of Education is used to pay suppliers. And if we had received that money as the press release sought to portray to the general public, then why is government releasing money now for us to pay suppliers? So it is not true. Even though I know, some of these things, there are, politics in it, but we are very focused in making sure that we would make lives very comfortable for our suppliers.
At the time of leaving the premises of the Buffer Stock Company after midday, about 70 out of the 282 suppliers had received their checks.
So after several agitations by members of the National Food Supplies Association, the National Food Buffer Stock Company Limited has begun paying them the 2 years arrears, despite some dissatisfaction that has been expressed by these suppliers over the amount being paid to them. The authority is ensuring that they will, by August 17, pay them the full amount of arrears. Reporting from the National Food Buffer Stock Company Limited here in Accra, my name is Kweku Eduamansa.
So government is making frantic efforts to pay these suppliers. Half of the money was given, and that is what the Agric Minister promised or said that it was going to be given. The exercise was to commence in July 17, but it was just yesterday that they started issuing the funds. I think that the buffer stock or the food suppliers should exercise patience as they work around the clock to pay them, because an indication has been given from the government side that by August 17, their funds or arrears will be given them.
I mean, I listened to the NAFCO, that's the National Food Buffer Stock Company CEO, Hanan Abdul Wahab, and he was reassuring in his comments that government and the Ministry of Agriculture have taken into very serious considerations the plights of these people who are being owed. My only concern is that it appeared time and time again that the timelines and the deadlines given by the Agric Minister was not adhered to. And I mean, they were looking for a full payment of somewhere around 203 million Ghana cedis, and only half of that has been paid. And I mean, I understand that is even to offset the 2022 debt. So it still puts these people, the food suppliers, in a very precarious situation. So I hope that the assurances from Hanan Abdul Wahab, who is the CEO of NAFCO, will be taken very seriously. And at the end of the day, like he said, in the coming days and weeks, these suppliers should expect a full. But I think it is. I mean, the food suppliers, you understand why they are still upset, but I think government's commitment towards meeting them halfway is something that should be able to...
At least I feel government has shown some sign of commitment.
Exactly.
The arrears to be paid. So at least just exercise patience as government works around it.
It is easier said than done.
Well, we just pray that they all see what they can do about it. But you're still watching CNR Extra here on CTV, still to come. The trial of the footballer accused of killing 2 teenagers at Abisimian Bono region is expected to begin on August 16 at the High Court. Kindly stay with us. We'll be back with more stories.
ready to witness a remarkable fair to showcase the rich diversity, talent, innovation, and mastery of made in Ghana products and services with the This is Ghana Exhibition 2023. City TV and City FM will allow you to immerse yourself in a vibrant showcase of authentic Ghanaian products and services in the biggest trade fair and exhibition for local SMEs, startups, research and manufacturing industries, homegrown businesses, and indigenous corporate bodies Ghana has ever seen. We shall promote, support, and patronize various Ghanaian products, solutions, and services that are redefining the views on indigenous products and their packaging across all sectors. Join us at the Accra Metropolitan Assembly on the 26th and the 27th of August 2023 at 10 a.m. through till 5 p.m. each day. Call us now on 0205-973-973 for inquiries on how to participate. The This is Ghana exhibition is powered by City TV and City FM and proudly sponsored by MTN Momo.
You're welcome back. This is CNR Extra here on City TV. My name is Philip Milate, and I'm here with Jude Mensa Duncan. Let's bring you some more stories. And Nagrat is calling for the immediate reinstatement of the interdicted head mistress that was amidst controversial money collection accusation. Let's bring you that insert.
The National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, is demanding the immediate reinstatement of the interdicted headmistress of the West Africa Senior High School, Dr. Shine Agatha Ofori. The headmistress was placed on interdiction after being accused of collecting unauthorized money from students. However, NAGRAT believes that the decision made by the Ghana Education Service is emblematic of the challenges faced by various senior high schools. The following report provides further details.
The Ghana Education Service has instructed the interdicted headmistress of the West Africa Senior High School, Dr. Shine Agatha Ofori, to hand over the administration of the school to the Regional Director of Education. The decision was made to pave way for an investigation into an alleged case of unauthorized money collection from students. In response to this development, the president of NAGRAT, Angel Kabono, asserts that the headmistress did nothing wrong and urges the government to shift its focus towards providing adequate financial resources to schools to enhance the overall quality of education.
We should all stop burying our heads in the sun like an ostrich to pretend that everything in the schools are rosy. Therefore, when you just identify the case of only one school, due to the fact that a parent goes to sit on an FM radio station to create the impression that parents are being forced, and as a result of that, the head of the school is interdicted, you are not solving the problem. The contribution of parents towards the survival of the schools in these days is a very common practice. And we'll be very surprised if the management of the Ghana Education Service or the Ministry of Education and then by extension, the government of Ghana will say they are not aware. We have schools, names of which I don't want to mention, that collect money from parents, or parents mobilizing themselves to contribute money for the upkeep of the schools. And we have ministers and government officials whose children attend those schools and they contribute to the payment of these monies.
This is not the first time the Ghana Education Service has taken such an action against heads of second cycle institutions in the country. Earlier in 2023, the service interdicted the headmaster of Fijai Senior High School in Sekendi, Kenneth Agbomaji, for allegedly charging illegal fees. In view of this, Mr. Kabonu, president of NAGRAT, has called on the government to promptly reinstate the headmistress.
You are just isolating one person and just picking that person as a scapegoat. The problem is bigger than West Africa Senior High School. The problem is distributed nationwide, and we think that it is absolutely wrong and unacceptable for heads of schools to be identified individually in the case that we are talking about. government of Ghana, there is the need for us to sit down with stakeholders to review the free senior high schools. Our schools are deteriorating very fast. There is an upsurge of private senior high schools in this country because they are beginning to be answers to the fact that our free senior high schools are not providing what it's supposed to provide. We plead with government for government to take the most pragmatic decision in the interest of education. We also call on the Ghana Education Service to immediately reinstate the headmistress of West Africa Senior High School and any other headmistress or head.
So the Ministry of Education has defended what the decision that the Ghana Education Service took. The Ministry of Education says that, well, there are some evidences that shows that some monies or fees were collected from the students. But if you listened or watched the argument from Nagra's side, this points to the fact that there are issues with the policy, which is a free senior high school policy, and that the revision that they've been calling for every now and then should be adhered to by government.
I mean, Philip, when this story broke out, it was quite interesting and surprising for me. I mean, personally, I know Madam Shine Ofori. I mean, she was a counselor.
Agatha.
Yeah, she was back in school, when I was in school, she was a counselor at Accra Academy. Very lovely lady.
Oh, wow.
And it's quite surprising that she would do anything that would go against or contravene the set standards or what is expected of her as a head of a school. So that was quite surprising. I mean, I think it's about time the GES and the Ministry of Education, together with the Free Senior High School Secretariat, if it still exists, I think it's time they clarify the role of the PTA in terms of offering support to the schools, because schools and even students. So he's better placed to know what is actually happening in our schools right now. And I don't doubt for a moment that there's some level of support coming in from parents who feel the standards in the school in terms of feeding, in terms of accommodation, in terms of tuition is declining. For each reason, they want to help in one way or the other. And in any case, if a group of parents come together and they say that we realize that the washrooms in this dormitory is in a very terrible shape, so we want to renovate it, that's our contribution. I'm struggling to understand the stand.
Volunteering or
Yes.
volunteering to give something out
And demanding
demanding it or being levied, and it looks like if parents are
to go through it as quickly as possible. But I'm saying that, I mean, if you listen to very, high-level educationists in this country, people who have been through the mill, people who have run very big educational institutions and got these institutions to reach a certain level that we all expect our educational institutions to reach, their comment on free SHS to a very large extent means that government should begin to take a second look at it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's affected its quality in a certain way, right? I mean, when Professor Ayite comes out to say that, I mean, the way it's going is about time we take a second look at it. I mean, Patrick Ewada, who runs Ashesi University, so many people, Professor
Asare
Stephen
for
Adai, Kofi Asare, who is also doing so well in the space right now. I think we can't continue to turn a blind eye to it and assume that everything is going on smoothly and everything is happening in a way that we expect our education to be, because the ripple effects will probably won't be felt now, but in some 10 years, in 20 years, when we expect these students who've gone through the process to start competing at a certain level with other students, then we might now begin to see the problem. So I think government should begin to relook at some of its stance with regards to the free SHS policy, and let's begin to see how we are able to fine-tune it such that we are addressing a particular problem of enrollment and also making sure that the quality of tuition and the overall development of that Ghanaian student is not compromised.
Well, so that is what is coming from the education side. Let's see how that is being resolved, and let's see how the investigations or the findings from the investigation would come out. Away from that story, in the trial of the footballer accused of killing 2 teenagers at Abesim in the Bono region is expected to begin on August 16 at the High Court. Let's bring you that insert.
The trial of the footballer accused of killing 2 teenagers at Abesim in the Bono region is expected to begin on August 16 at the High Court. Now, this was after the Kaneshie District Court, presided over by her magistrate Ama Adumako Kwache, committed the accused Richard Appiah for the murder trial. The committal proceedings have been ongoing since his arrest in 2021. During the committal proceedings, Richard Appiah was first declared unfit to stand trial due to a medical condition he was suffering from, but has now been declared fit to stand trial after treatment. Counsel for the accused, Theophilus G. Mega, spoke to the media after court proceedings.
What happened today is just the committal. Okay. So the piece of evidence that the state has against the accused were presented, and the judge was to determine whether it's enough for the accused to stand trial. So we were given the piece of evidence today, and he has been committed to stand trial at the High Court, Accra, on 16th August 2023 at 9 o'clock. So basically that is what happened today.
How many witnesses are you calling?
We intend to call 2 witnesses. The state will be calling a number of witnesses for the case, and at this stage it's not to
So this issue has been traveling for some time, and it was a very sad situation when it came out. Part was found in this gentleman's refrigerator and all of that. But the trial will begin on August 16, and we just want to follow up and see how it's going to go. But the accused was arrested in 2021 after he was reported to have been the last person to be spotted with some persons that went missing in Abesim. Shocking details emerging from the arrest indicated that the suspect, who was 28 years then, Richard Appiah, had human parts of one of the deceased person in his fridge.
I mean, and this is not even to like digress, right? But it's shocking how if someone like this is found at the end of the day by the court with all reasonable evidence supporting the fact that he murdered these people in such circumstances for whichever reason, should not be given a death penalty, right? So then again, the abolitionists should come again with some of these things, because Philip, it was horrific. It was something that,
but it has to be taken through the trial. And
that's what I'm saying. That if the evidence, that's what I'm saying. That if the evidence supports it from the court. But I mean, Philip, back to the case. It was horrific when it first broke out, because it was something that nobody expected. When the story broke out, I quite recall some residents in the area where he resides were interviewed, and it was the shock on their faces.
Well, like, he's a very quiet gentleman.
He was going about his business normally, and nothing suggested that he could be in such a very, very terrible act. So, I mean, it's unfortunate, and people had suggested at the time that he needed some psychological help whatsoever. But I think that, Philip, the problem should not be delayed the issue, which is at the court, should not be delayed any much. Already, some 2 years have passed since it, and I mean, for the families who had their loved ones, I mean,
life's Persian.
Yeah, I mean,
they are also
they deserve justice, right? So the more you prolong a case like this, the more they feel that justice, because like they say all the time, justice delayed is really justice denied. So I hope the courts will be able to go through this quickly and we put the matter to this once and for all.
Still in the courts because the Supreme Court has given the go-ahead to Papa Kwesi Indum to challenge the revocation of the license of his bank at the High Court.
His bank at the High Court. Now, this follows a judgment of the Apex Court overturning an earlier decision of the Court of Appeal, preventing the case from being heard in court. GN Bank was part of a number of financial institutions whose licenses were revoked in 2018 as part of the banking sector cleanup. Dr. Papa Kwesi Indum, who is founder of the bank, made an application to the High Court challenging the revocation. Our respondents in the matter, including the Bank of Ghana, moved to the Court of Appeal for a determination that the appropriate forum for challenging the revocation under the Specialized Deposit-Taking Institutions Act is through arbitration. The Court of Appeal granted their application, stayed proceedings at the High Court, and directed the parties to go for arbitration. Group Indum, following this decision of the Court of Appeal, applied to the Supreme Court for a review of the decision. The Apex Court today returned with a verdict in favor of Papa Kwesi Indum.
When the license of this particular bank was revoked in 2018, amongst other banks, you could tell that it really went hard on employees of GN Bank because, Jude, those times, everywhere you walk or everywhere you go, you certainly find GN Bank. Is that the Supreme Court has given the go-ahead to Papa Kwesi Indum to challenge the revocation of this license that happened in 2018.
I mean, Group Indum and GN Bank, for that matter, have been quite consistent with their arguments when they say that they did nothing wrong for each reason, the revocation of their bank and other financial institutions in 2018. For them, they say that they were clean and they've been pushing this for the whole period, about 6 years now, and they are still going. It will be interesting how this plays out in court. I mean, we understand that the respondents, there's the Bank of Ghana, wanted it to go through an arbitration process, but the lawyers for Group Indum felt otherwise. For each reason, they've taken it. I think the matter even went to the Court of Appeal at the point. I think that we should allow the court to do its job, and if it's found that indeed it was taken down unlawfully, then whatever compensations that would have to be paid should be paid to them. But I mean, now that it's become also a very political issue, I mean, with reference to the whole financial sector cleanup, because you hear even members from the opposition, NDC, to say that it wasn't done in good faith and all of that. So it brings to the fore the issue at hand, and it will be interesting how this particular one plays out. But we expect that the court would do its job, and at the end of the day, like we said for the previous case, justice will be served.
So 17 individuals were injured in a road accident involving a Metro Mass vehicle that was traveling on the Accra-Cape Coast Highway.
17 individuals sustained minor injuries in a road accident involving a Metro Mass vehicle with registration number GT 5392-17 traveling from Accra to Cape Coast. The incident occurred when the bus collided with the rear of a stationary vehicle en route to Ivory Coast at the Portson Junction in the Central Region. Calvis Tete, our Central Regional Correspondent, brings you the details in the following report.
The accident took place around 10 a.m. near the Eyewitnesses reported that the Metro Mass transport bus was heading towards Cape Coast when it spotted the trailer with registration number BL 4582 about to park on the road's shoulder. To avoid a potential head-on collision with an articulated truck while attempting to overtake the trailer, the bus driver had no choice but to hit the rear of the parked trailer, leading to the accident. As a result of the crash, 17 individuals suffered injuries of varying degrees. An eyewitness spoke to City News.
The onion driver said that when they set off, they went to the onion market to offload the onions over there just to make market. But when they studied the terrain, they realized that the market is not favoring them. So they decided to set off to Ivory Coast. So just 5 minutes when they set off from the place, it started drizzling. So the only thing they have to do is that they have to secure the onions by covering them with the tarpaulin. So in an attempt to park by the roadside, in order for them to cover the onion or secure the onions, then they saw that this Metro Mass bus on a high speed was rushing toward them. Then, per the interaction we also had with the driver, the driver said that he was caught in between. Why? Because there was another articulate driver which was driving the opposite direction. So the option the driver had is either he hit the car with the oncoming car or the stationary car. So he decided to choose the stationary car so that the degree of the injury will reduce.
One person who is in critical condition has been referred to the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital for further treatment.
We have 2 of them whose condition were a bit critical. So after my examination as a senior physician assistant, we realized that we had to give critical care to those 2 cases. We are suspecting a possible head injury. Then also we had one with suspected collar fracture and also a shoulder dislocation.
The individual and others, including some staff of the Potting Polyclinic, have formed an emergency response team to attend to the victims on the stretch. Other emergency response personnel comprising representatives from the fire service, police, Ghana Ambulance Service and others also stationed on the stretch.
It's a very effective page. The moment an accident is heard, it's posted on the WhatsApp page, and quickly, because the page comprises of diverse skills or professionals. We have media, a lot of medical people on the community, the police, ambulance. So quickly they marshal or put all the resources together to the scene.
The facility, together with some individuals within the Potting community, has come up with an emergency response team who quickly respond to accident cases on the stretch. This, they believe, is saving lives. Carl Vistete.
So it's a very sad one every now and then on that particular stretch. This isn't the first time such an incident is happening there, Potting Junction, and you just can't tell what really happens there. I think the speeding and also how free the road is. But if some sort of checks will be put there, it's going to help. Just the statistics coming in for the first 6 months of 2023 states that road crashes that were recorded in this country is some 1,086, and this is 16.25% reduction compared to the 1,300 killed during the same period in 2022. They give breakdowns.
The 1,000 is death.
Yes, so the 1,300 killed in 2022, but in total, what we have recorded this year, this the first 6 months, is 1,086. So you could tell the first one, the 2022 was 1,300, but this is 1,086. So some 200 difference. But at least some measures have to be put in place. I know the National Road Safety Commission is doing what it can to ensure that at least drivers obey the road and vehicle regulations on the road, and also the Ghana Police is doing its part of it. Most often the blame is on drivers or motorists, that when you are driving, at least you should be patient enough to ensure that you have lives of people in your vehicle so you don't ruin their lives.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you largely. My concern is that with this particular stories, Calvis, our Central Regional correspondent, has been bringing with regards to road crashes on some of the stretch in the region. It appears that there's a trend where it involves buses, right? Yeah. And tankers, right? You rarely hear, I mean, of course, there are also crashes involving saloon cars and passenger vehicles, but it's not as pronounced as with regards to the injuries and the fatalities as the ones with that involve the buses and the tankers. So we like you said, I agree. The National Road Safety Authority I think they should be doing more. We read that there's a 15% reduction with regards to the same rate of accidents over the period last year, but that's not enough.
16.25%.
16%. I mean, I think there's a lot more we can do as a people. We have to reinforce the road safety regulations, education, the campaign.
You see, the enforcement can be done and everything can be done, but then again, it boils down to us, the drivers, to ensure that the right thing is done. Because
at the end of the day,
you are traveling on the stretch, and because the road is free, you would go 180.
Yes, so that is where the education comes in, right? I quite recall not too long ago. I mean, we're very heavy as a country on the road safety campaign. I mean, every time you switch on your TV, there was a road safety campaign song. I mean, remember the one with that featured a ball? I mean, it was a big thing back in the day, but we don't see a lot of it now, right? If you push them a little, they'll tell you that they don't have the funding and the necessary support to sustain campaigns like that. But I think that because of the numbers involved, because of the fact that it continually takes away a chunk of our human resource base. I mean, you are mentioning 1,000 people dying in road accidents. That's
the first
someone's breadwinner. That's someone's father. That's someone's wife. And it's sad that we have to report on some of these numbers all the time. So I think at the end of the day, everybody involved in the system have a role to play. The driver, even the passenger. If you are sitting in a vehicle and somebody is speeding and it's your life at risk, right? So you have to speak out. So we hope that in the coming days, a lot more work can be done in that area, in that regard.
Well, so we pray that the National Road Safety Authorities and the various authorities will take charge and ensure that the accidents or the road crashes are reduced. That's how we end today's edition of CNR Extra here on CCTV. My name is Philip Ni Latte. I did this with Jude Benson Duncan. Many thanks for your time as always, and keep watching CCTV.
This is the Situation Room on City TV. You're welcome. My name is Umaru Sandamado, and I'm doing this with Bernard Kwakuavle. The Situation Room on City TV does the analysis